the first pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars, everyone has been going with Aidan Hutchinson. I've seen some Thibodeaux out there. Man, I look at what they did last year, Trevor Lawrence, and the struggles that he had. I just feel like this pick has to help him. And I think of the general manager in Trent McDuffie, who is a Bill Parcells guy. They are very close. He's tried to hire Parcells a couple times, but they go way back. And I think about Bill Parcells having the first pick, and I think about Jake Long being the first pick.
Ooh.
And that's why I've arrived at this. I have the Jags with the first pick, passing on the pass rushers and taking Evan Neal from Alabama, who is enormous. That's something that Bill Parcells has always believed in, collecting the big guys. And then you've got somebody that's done it at a really high level. He's gotten better every year at Alabama. He's not perfect, but this is a big, giant human being that's going to come in and help your quarterback who desperately needs it.
Yeah, no, I think you're on the right wavelength when it comes to the quarterback. I think everyone is going to look at the young quarterbacks, and Joe Burrow is going to be probably the example that many use. Hey, man, the Cincinnati Bengals were able to get to the playoffs in 2 years. They got the quarterback. The next year, they put the weapons around him. And even though we're looking at that offensive line, and we can say, like, can they, should they? I think the theme is you have to build around the quarterback. Evan Neal is certainly a nice pass protector, someone who's a big body who can move bodies at the line of scrimmage. Regardless of how the Jaguars play, at some point, you need to upgrade the fortress around Trevor Lawrence. So to me, it makes perfect sense.
All right, so that kind of leads the dominoes to start here. We get to the Lions with the number 2 pick. It's too easy. It's right in front of them. It's Aidan Hutchinson. You just send a taxi to go pick him up, or I guess you send an Uber, go pick him up and drive him over to the facility. That seems like a no-brainer for them. Just a rock-solid, safe player. He's going to test like a freak. I think, to me, he's plug and play and gives some juice to this defense here for the Lions.
Yeah, more importantly, I think he fits the culture that Dan Campbell is building in Detroit. Hard, high-motor players, guys that are very disciplined and detailed in their approaches. Aidan Hutchinson fits that. Look, he's not the perfect prospect, but man, there's a lot to like about him. This is a super freakish athlete, a guy who does it the right way. I think when you're in Detroit, you're trying to accumulate as many of those guys, and then you figure out what to do with them. So now another pick that I say I'm all aboard with Aidan Hutchinson going at 2.
All right, we get to number 3 with the Texans. All right, try and get inside Nick Caserio's head here and think back to his roots, obviously, decades with the New England Patriots. And we think about how the Patriots have built those defenses. Not like the rest of the league who builds front to back. The Patriots build back to front. And so who's a Patriot-type player? I went with Kyle Hamilton, the safety from Notre Dame, who is as clean as it gets. You talk about somebody who's big, fast, he's versatile, he's smart. I mean, it just, to me, felt like a Patriots-type player. They bypass the pass rushers. They go get Kyle Hamilton, who can do a lot of different things for your scheme. I think that's something that they would really value in that kind of Patriots South that they have there in Houston.
Hey, we've talked about this multiple times on the podcast. Elite defenses are built right down the middle with blue-chip players. And the way the game is going, you need to have someone in the middle of the field who can impact the game in a variety of different ways. Can come down in the box and make tackles. Can they cover a little bit? Do they have the range to play over the top? Well, Kyle Hamilton can do all of those things. And so when you think about a high IQ team and a high IQ defense that Nick Caserio wants to put together, man, it starts with a guy like Kyle Hamilton being able to be the director, the orchestra conductor in the back end.
So now you get to number 4 with the Jets. And this is an interesting one because you've got Kayvon Thibodeaux, who is still on the board from Oregon. But you also have, in my opinion, the best offensive lineman in the draft. Now, I ended up putting Evan Neal in a mock draft first overall. But Ikem Ekwonu is the best offensive lineman in the draft, in my opinion. And you've got a situation where, man, you're trying to really help your young quarterback and Zach Wilson. I could make a strong argument to take the offensive lineman here. But you look at the pass rush and how anemic it was. They get Carl Lawson back. But Kayvon Thibodeaux being there, some people may be surprised he's here at 4. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes beyond this and dropped even further, just because the tape wasn't great this year. To me, you saw some effort issues. I think he's got some stiffness that shows up when you look at his lower body. I think that concern is a little bit of a concern to me. So I think that we've kind of just penciled Thibodeaux into the top 2. I don't necessarily think that's a lock, but I do have him going right here. The Jets have that decision to make. I have him taking Thibodeaux here with the 4th pick.
Yeah, this is interesting. It's interesting because there's been a lot of conversation about Thibodeaux. A lot of people just kind of assumed he is number one or number two. But here he is for the Jets, available at number 4. If you're Joe Douglas, what you're thinking is, how can I win the division? Because before we can even think about being a Super Bowl team, how can we win the division? Well, in this division, you now have a quarterback in Josh Allen who looks like a marquee player. You also have maybe an emerging player in Mac Jones that you have to defend. And so the only way that you're going to be able to get past those teams, if you have to be able to affect their quarterback, and the easiest way to do it is to have a good pass rusher. That is why the pick would be sensible for the Jets at 4 right now.
All right, we get to the Giants here at number 5. I think they're all in on Daniel Jones. I think they're committed to him. I think they want to see if they can put some more pieces around him to make it work, whoever that the new regime is, when they're trying to work through that as we speak. But I've got them taking Icky here. Great nickname, by the way, Icky. Ikem Ekwonu from NC State. One of my favorite players in the draft. Just nasty. You could play him at tackle if you wanted to. You kick him inside to guard. I think he'd be outstanding in there as well. But somebody who's played a lot of football and has some impressive tape. You talk about just finishing dudes. I love the way he plays, and give Daniel Jones a little help here with the 5th pick.
Daniel Jones needs a lot of help. They have to fix this offensive line. Despite their best intentions and their efforts, they haven't been able to do that. And when the New York Giants are playing the kind of style of football they want to play, regardless of who the coach has been, they've always been really good up front. Icky gives them an opportunity to solidify a big position, to set Daniel Jones up for success in what could be the make or break year for him during his tenure with the Giants. So yeah, this is a sensible pick, is one that is long overdue. They have to upgrade that offensive line.
All right, we get to the Carolina Panthers. Interesting. I think this is where you start to see the quarterback discussion take place. Are they high enough on any of these guys? Now, they don't have a second-round pick. They traded that, the Sam Darnold trade. They've already picked up the 5th-year option for Sam Darnold. I don't know. I think they'll do their homework on these quarterbacks, Buck, but I feel like with them already financially committed to Sam Darnold, I could see them trying to get one more year out of him. Maybe they look at a quarterback a little bit later on. Maybe they try and address that in free agency. I just don't see him doing it here with the 6th pick. And I have them doing what they did last year, which in my opinion is go out and get one of the premier corners. And it's probably not the guy that everybody thinks. To me, I think the best corner in this draft is Sauce Gardner from Cincinnati. He's got outstanding tape. He's 6'2", he's long, he's rangy, he's very fluid and loose. And can you imagine now, if you're Matt Rule, I know you've got to get the offense humming, but when you can line up on defense, get J.C. Horn back healthy, last year's first-round pick, put him on one side, Sauce Gardner on the other, you can lock people down on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, so DJ, we've talked about this. The key to becoming a team that goes from being bad to good is you have to find a way to be dominant on one side of the ball. And so we think about the draft picks and what the Panthers have been able to do in the past. They were able to get the defense to play at a high level for parts of the season by really being a defensive-oriented team. Well, now go all the way in on that. So now you have Sauce Gardner to go with J.C. Horn. You can lock people down on the outside. You encourage your defensive coordinator to really bring the heat and come from everywhere. And maybe, just maybe, you get to be a 500 team or maybe a little bit above 500 by playing great defense. So we've seen the Panthers kind of go that defensive route. Maybe Matt Rule says, hey, I got to get something going. And the easiest thing in my estimation to get going would be that defense.
Okay, here we go. We're going to go to the Giants with the next pick. We had them taking Ekwonu, the tackle, at the 5th pick. They come back with the 7th pick. They go Devin Lloyd, linebacker from Utah, who, to me, it's a great discussion between him and Nakobe Dean. I think Lloyd ends up going ahead of him. He's just taller. He's longer. He's probably going to be a little bit faster as well. Both outstanding players. Both are incredible in the intangibles. Guys you want in the middle of your defense in terms of the leadership, the intelligence, off the charts. So I know off-the-ball linebackers, it's a touchy subject with some people. They don't, philosophically believe in taking those guys in the top 10. But in this draft where there's just not as many clean players, I think Devin Lloyd is one of the cleaner players. So I've got him going to the Giants here. And you talk about building, up the middle on offense and on defense. They get that accomplished here with their 2 top 10 picks.
Yeah, depending upon who the coach comes in, this is certainly in play. Devin Lloyd is terrific. We talk about dominance in the middle of the field, being able to dominate in between the tackles. Devin Lloyd is a dominant player. All you had to do is just pop in the tape. The guy's all over the place making plays. I like him, and you're right. The discussion, Nakobe Dean and some of these other guys that can play that off the linebacker spot, it'll be interesting as we go along. But, man, I can't knock Lloyd from being a top 10 pick. He's terrific. He dominated the Pac-12.
All right, let's keep it rolling here. Let's go to the Falcons. 8th pick. Now, a lot of different directions that they could go here. Matt Ryan getting older. Maybe they entertain the quarterback opportunity here. I don't think that happens. For everything I've been told, Arthur Smith is very happy with Matt Ryan and still feels like he's got more. So I look at the situation with Calvin Ridley and that being unsettled as at the time we're recording this. And I look at the receiver position. I look at Arthur Smith and where he came from with Tennessee, and I think about A.J. Brown. Well, who's the A.J. Brown in this draft? It's Treylon Burks, the receiver from Arkansas. A little bit taller, 6'3", 225 pounds. He can roll, Buck. I mean, he's got so many long touchdowns, 80, 90 yards. He tore up Alabama in one of the better games that they're going to play. He's a really good player after the catch. He's tough. He's physical. I think he's got something like 11-inch hands, and he can roll. So to me, I think that would be a fun piece. You have Kyle Pitts. Now all of a sudden you put him out there, and you got Treylon Burks and Pitts. That's fun to work with.
Yeah, it's fun to work with, and you always have to tap into the head coach's background to kind of get an understanding of their sweet tooth. Arthur Smith had a lot of success in Tennessee with A.J. Brown. DJ, when you look at Treylon Burks, his game is eerily similar to the way that A.J. Brown played at Ole Miss. You watch him, man, he wins the 50-50 ball. He dominates with his physicality and toughness. He has great run after catch ability. Wouldn't say he's the cleanest route runner, but in this game, we've seen that people have been able to really unleash those guys because Arthur Smith's background with A.J. Brown. These dots connect. Interesting.
All right, here we go. 9th pick overall, the Denver Broncos, and here we go. This is the quarterback. I've got Kenny Pickett going here. You can argue, okay, is Kenny Pickett a top 10 talent? Okay, I might not have him as one of my 10 top players in this draft class, but when you look at the Broncos, if they can't get something done in free agency, and you're sitting there with the 9th pick, and in my opinion, Kenny Pickett is better than anything you have on campus. So we've got a chance to upgrade that position. Kenny Pickett's played a lot of football. He's a little bit older. Doesn't bother me at all. Same thing was said about Joe Burrow coming into the league, a little bit older. I think this kid's really, really established himself as a solid player who's a little more sudden and a little more of a playmaker. We saw that this year than we'd seen previously at Pitt. He's very accurate. So to me, he upgrades what they've got. So that's why I've got him going quarterback.
Kenny Pickett very well could benefit from the bounce of what I call the Joe Burrow-Mac Jones bounce. Yeah. The Joe Burrow bounce because his production came very late in his career, and Joe Burrow has kind of dismacked or debunked that, where we're like, is he 1 year wonder, those things. So he benefits from that. I think he also benefits from the Mac Jones bounce in terms of, look, Kenny Pickett has more athleticism than Mac Jones, but I think from a cerebral IQ, the way that he plays it, people are going to try and link that up because Mac Jones has success this year starting for the Patriots. It'll be interesting to see what the consensus eventually is on Kenny Pickett, but I can see a path for him to go in the top 10 because he is a very effective player. He played really well. He did a lot of good things his final season at Pitt.
Okay, here we go. Let's go 10th pick, final pick in the top 10. The Jets have gone pass rusher early. I mentioned that decision being between pass rusher and offensive lineman. I think they, really, really would like to come out of this with an offensive lineman when you look at some of the needs that they possess. But you need a corner. So I've got him going corner here, and maybe a name that you don't expect. But I love this kid's tape. I think it's outstanding. And that's Trent McDuffie from Washington. Does not get challenged a lot when you watch the tape, but he is very fluid. He is fast. He will fill against the run. I love his toughness that he brings. And when he does get opportunities, he can find and play the ball. He just doesn't get challenged all that often. But he is a good football player who I think would go to the Jets and immediately be their top corner. So they've gone pass rusher and corner here with their top 2 picks.
Yeah, Trent McDuffie, long legacy, big-time playmakers coming out of UW. One thing that I will say, Jimmy Lake at the time did a really good job of developing those guys in the back end. Didn't necessarily work for him when he was the head coach, but, man, just look at all the players that have come out of UW recently. I think the big conversation that everyone will have when they see Trent McDuffie go 10, what is up with Derek Stingley? Because Derek Stingley from LSU has been roundly expected to be one of those guys that comes off the board in the top 10. So for him to be out, that is a bit of a controversy.
We get to the 11th pick, the Washington football team. I think they're probably more likely to fill the quarterback position in free agency, but in this exercise, it hasn't happened yet. So I'm going to give them Matt Corral, a quarterback from Ole Miss here with the 11th pick.
Hey, I like it. To me, I think there's a lot of stuff about him that would make him number 1 when people really dig into it. And so I think that conversation and comparison between Matt Corral and Kenny Pickett is going to be fascinating. But for the Washington football team, he'd be a nice pick because I do believe talent-wise, he's an upgrade over what they have, as you say, on campus.
All right, well, here you go. Here he is, Derek Stingley. I have him going 12 to the Minnesota Vikings. I know some people expect he could go all the way as high as number 4 to the Jets. You see his name mentioned up there. He is very talented. He's big. He's a very fluid athlete. The tape just wasn't very good the last couple years to me. He struggled with kind of the physicality bothered me. Some of the want to in terms of tackling really bothered me. And so that to me is why I think you could see him slide a little bit. I don't think that every team is as in love with him as maybe it's made out to be. So the ability's there, and somebody can draft him and get it out of him. It could be a home run pick, but there's some concern there with what he's put on tape the last couple of years after a phenomenal freshman year.
This conversation will come down to talent, toughness, and technique. What do you favor? What do you believe in? What do you value more? He is very talented, but you do have questions about the toughness because if you can't tackle, that is a problem. You can't hide people. And so the tackling is a very real concern. It's going to be one of those things that he's going to have to address. And you put up 2 years of suspect tape, it's hard to wipe that away. He is very talented, but the tape is the tape. And it's hard to ignore how he's looked the last couple seasons.
Get to number 13. I've got the Browns taking Travon Walker out of Georgia, who is kind of a freak. It's interesting. You look at him, I think he had 6 sacks, but he really doesn't get to rush all that much. They kind of play him tight. They play him in like a 4-eye inside the tackle a good bit. So he's having to kind of play run to pass, and then they rotate guys through. 275-pound guy. You can see, I want to say it's the Florida game. You can see him drop in coverage, lay out, get his hand on a ball, tip it up in the air, and it's picked. Like, this big dude plays off the ball. It's crazy the things he can do. I think he's going to be a better pro than necessarily what we saw at Georgia, but I have him going there to the Browns. Jadeveon Clowney probably going to walk out the door. He steps right in and starts.
Yeah, this is a good one because size, athleticism, playmaking ability. You don't get him see him unleash it all the time. But man, that Georgia defense was so loaded. You can just feel it, man. They just feel like an NFL defense. He certainly played his role. We'll see. The Browns have to continue to keep adding pieces to the defense because it was really good, but you want great, and you have to find someone opposite Myles Garrett who also can be very productive.
Well, this ain't the last of the Georgia guys in my mock draft here. Well, there's plenty more to come here. Ravens with the 14th pick. I've got him taking Trevor Penning, who's a really, really intriguing offensive lineman. He's huge. I mean, he's like 6'7", 320 pounds. I think he's got 35-inch arms, just really long. He is nasty. He kind of fits what they like in terms of temperament. But you get Ronnie Stanley back healthy. You park Ronnie back at left tackle, who they've paid. Now you take Penning, you plug him in at right tackle. Hopefully you do a better job keeping guys healthy, and the Ravens get right back to where they want to be.
Yeah, this is one where we talked about it. Like, some of the Ravens' issues really stem from their inability to control the line of scrimmage. Injuries tore them up. But when you have Ronnie Stanley back, you're able to kind of fill that hole on the right side because Villanueva he was tough to watch at times. So now you give them a guy who is long, he's rangy, he has the nastiness that's a part of the culture. He is a fit in Baltimore.
Pick 15, I've got him going George Karlaftis from Purdue. Very skilled rusher. He's got power, big time power, leverage rusher. When you watch him, he does not look long. He does not look like he has much length. I'm curious to see when those measurements come in. I haven't seen those yet. So that'll be intriguing. He's got juice. He's got some burst. Not necessarily the most nimble in terms of bending at the top of his rush. I think there'll be some conflicting grades on him, but he's a finisher. And that's something we always talk about on the podcast. Guys that finish, get guys on the ground, just has a real natural feel.
Yeah, he does have natural feel. He's also coming from a school that has done a really good job of producing pass rushers. You think about Aiken Adele, you think about Sean Phillips, Ryan Kerrigan. The list goes on and on and on. Rosie Colvin. They have some guys that have come through there. He is a talented player. He's a guy who has some pop to him, heavy-handed. Maybe he's the next one to start at the next level.
There we go. All right, 16, just for you, Buck. I've got the Eagles taking Drake London, the wide receiver from USC, because we've talked about that. Getting a bigger wide receiver kind of complement Devontae Smith. They got an up-close look at Mike Evans and how difficult he is to cover. I think Drake London's going to elicit some comps to Mike Evans. To me, reminds me more a little bit of Mike Williams, who I see doing the Charger games, but give them a little different flavor in their wide receiver group. Big, rangy, tough. Man, I love his game, and I think it would be a quarterback's best friend.
Yeah, this is the luxury of being able to have 3 first-round picks. You can go and address that position. I don't care what you say. When you miss, you want to look, fail fast, and make up for it. So go and get a big body in Drake London, someone who can take it off the rim, You need to expand the strike zone. Howie Roseman has come out and talked about Jalen Hurts having the opportunity to be the starter in 2020. Well, you want to give him an opportunity to have success. Big body playmaker to complement Devontae Smith on the other side and Dallas Goedert over the middle.
When you look at the Chargers, I think they go offensive tackle here for the second year in a row. Home run last year with Rashawn Slater. They go to Central Michigan and get Bernard Raymond here with the 17th pick. Well, I'm a little bit higher on than a lot of folks out there. He's got tremendous strength. I'm talking about core strength and hand strength. Why does that matter? He does not get tugged and pulled. You see a lot of pass rush where they're able to get into your hands, tug and pull you, and then be able to win. He doesn't move, Buck. When he gets his hands on you, you cannot tug him, you can't pull him. He's an outstanding player. I think after the Senior Bowl, you're going to see him kind of take off and rise up through the process.
When you have a franchise quarterback, your number one priority is to do everything you can to protect him. Sometimes you protect him by getting better pass protectors. Other times you surround him with playmakers. Either way, this is about Justin Herbert. We want to make sure that the guy does not have to endure some of the punishment that he took last year coming off that side.
All right, we get to the Saints at 18. I've got them going to Ohio State for a wide receiver. I want to see that worked out for them once upon a time with Michael Thomas. I've got them going to Ohio State and getting Garrett Wilson. Again, it's a flavor thing between him and Chris Olave. Olave's going to fly. He's going to run in the low 4.3s. Garrett Wilson probably in the mid 4.4s. Garrett Wilson just gives you a little bit more after the catch and can play above the rim a little bit more. So I think he's a great fit as they try and get some more firepower in that Saints offense. The Eagles, their third pick here at number 19. Kelsey's older. Kelsey's a free agent. So you can easily look at this and say, okay, I can swap out Kelsey. I can put in Tyler Linderbaum, who's the top center in this draft, who's really would be a tremendous value at this point in time. However, they draft Landon Dickerson last year. Landon Dickerson played center at Alabama. Landon Dickerson is a big, massive human being who played guard this year. To me, it makes more sense. You slide him over to center. He's done it. He's huge. He's good at it. And then you go draft Kenyon Green right here out of Texas A&M, who's a 320-pound guard. He is a phenomenal player to me. I think this is a good value pick for where you get him right here. He can roll his hips. He's physical. And now all of a sudden you start looking at that line again, and you've got Mailata and Lane Johnson, and now you've got Dickerson, and now you add another young player here in Kenyon Green. You're cooking with gas on this offensive line.
Yeah, it's about the offensive line. When the Eagles have been at their best, they've been able to control the line of scrimmage. Kenyon Green, Texas A&M, we know what Jimbo Fisher has been putting together down there. Talented player, guy's a people mover. You put him in guard, you have Landon Dickerson. You have flexibility. That's the one thing about Howard Rosen. You get 3 picks right in the middle of the draft. You can do whatever you want to do. All
right, let's stay in the state here, and let's go over to Pittsburgh. The Steelers with the 20th pick. I've got them taking Charles Cross, another offensive tackle out of Mississippi State. I know some people have him way up there. To me, this is kind of more in the range of where I have him graded. He is one thing about him, man. When you look at your notes, you never see OTG on the ground. He is never on the ground. He's got really good balance. He's got good feet. He's not real dynamic, explosive, or powerful when you watch him in the run game. But man, he's a starting tackle. And the Steelers upgrading that offensive line, I think, is a need. I think he could play on either side. I think he's a really solid player here. Another offensive lineman goes with the 20th pick to the Steelers. All right, Buck, let's roll through these here. 21, the Patriots, Jordan Davis, mammoth defensive tackle from Georgia. Some teams aren't going to love him just because they don't see the pass rush upside. The Patriots love bigs. And you put him now on Christian Barmore, man, you're going to dominate against the run with that group, and you're going to give yourself opportunities to rush a quarterback.
Yeah, you absolutely. It's about being able to create pressure. They need more pressure. They like to use 4-man rushes and a bunch of simulated pressures. Jordan Davis can certainly fit in that mix.
We get to the Raiders. Look, the Raiders need to add some more weapons on the outside. I mentioned Chris Olave a little bit earlier. He's going to run the 4.3s. He gives them the speed element that they lost with the awful situation with Henry Ruggs. You go out and get Olave, you plug and play. He's going to be a home run hitter. He's going to be an outstanding player at the next level.
Yeah, the speed factor is always important for the Raiders. They need another stretch to field guy. They need a young one, a dynamic playmaker.
All right, we get to the Cardinals. They go edge rusher David Ojabo out of Michigan. Wouldn't shock me if Ojabo went in the top 10. It wouldn't shock me if he went in the bottom of the first round. Grades around the league are all over the map on him. He's incredibly raw. He's got pass rush. He struggles against the run. But, man, he got – some people say, oh, the production came because all the attention went to Aidan Hutchinson. I don't all necessarily buy that. I think this guy's got tools. He's got ability. He's raw. He's not there yet. The comparisons to Odafe Owe coming out last year are going to be out there. I thought Owe was much stronger. He was a good run defender. The knock on him was he didn't have the pass rush production. This kid's not as strong at the point of attack, but I think he's got a really good feel as a rusher. So I've got him sliding in here at 23 to the Cardinals.
Interesting. I like Ojabo. Having watched him up close and personal in the Big Ten championship game, I like the speed. I like the burst, the way he comes off. When you have an opportunity to take a young guy where he can watch Chandler Jones work every day, gives him a chance to really accelerate his development.
All right, we get to the Cowboys here at 24. This was a tough one. To me, Linderbaum is staring at you, and that could be where they go. He's an outstanding player. But Nakobe Dean is still on the board. And to me, Nakobe Dean's one of the top players in this draft class, top 15 type talent. But as an off-the-ball linebacker who's a little bit undersized and who's somebody who I think he's going to run well, but I don't think he's going to run the 4.4s or the low 4.5s. So you're a little bit undersized. You don't really hit all those marks. I think he's going to be a steal at this point in the draft. And I've got the Dallas Cowboys parking him. Think about him and Micah Parsons. You can free up Micah Parsons because Nakobe Dean can be the signal caller. He can take care of all of the assignments and then just free up Micah Parsons to go. I think that leadership intelligence in Nakobe Dean would be perfect fit for the Cowboys.
Yeah, it's not only those two guys, but think about Jabril Cox and what else they can do. And you think about this game where you have to be able to match up, you need more speed on the field. It's something that would have to be in consideration. Offensive line is going to be a huge conversation starter in Dallas. But if you're going to really fortify the defense, you need more speed, especially with Leighton Van Der Esch. I think he's a free agent at this point.
All right, Buck, let's get to the Buffalo Bills here with pick number 25. I've got them going Kyler Gordon, the other corner from Washington. So you've got Trent McDuffie going a little bit earlier, Kyler Gordon here. Real long, real rangy, excellent ball skills. He got a little more action on his side this last year than McDuffie did. But, man, with the Bills, we saw it with some of the injuries last year with Tre'Davious White being out. I think another corner would really help.
Look, the strength of their defense has been their secondary, their ability to play a bunch of different techniques, use a bunch of different coverages. So it makes a lot of sense. And when you think about how they were able to overcome Tre'Davious White's injury, that is remarkable. But then you add more talent, more firepower to that unit. It just gives you the flexibility. I don't think you ever have enough corners based on the way they play.
All right, I've got the Tennessee Titans going Georgia linebacker Quay Walker, another Georgia defender in this draft class. He's 6'3" and change, almost 6'4". He's 245 pounds. He can really, really run. So we know this Tennessee Titans defense is a physical bunch. They're big and they're fast. I think he fits into kind of their culture and what they're looking for in players.
Yeah, when you say that and you talk about the Tennessee Titans, the only image I have is Mike Vrabel going to pro days with that pad strapped around his chest and taking Quay Walker out in the back and just absolutely wearing him out. Because, look, it's a guy that is built like him. You know, long limbs as they're building this defense out in a mode that looks like those old Patriots defenses when Vrabel and Willie McGinnis were on the edges.
Yeah, no doubt. He's a good football player. Jahan Dotson going to the Bucks at 27. Penn State receiver, potentially coming in to replace a Penn State receiver. Chris Godwin coming off that injury. He's a free agent. We'll see if he's back or not, and we'll see who's throwing the football there for Tampa next year. A little uncertainty there at this point in time. But with the attrition that they had, Antonio Brown, potentially with Chris Godwin going forward, I think another weapon is needed.
Yeah, no, another weapon is definitely needed. And it's one of those things that the Buccaneers have to be honest with themselves when they look at their wide receiver core. You have Mike Evans, but now you may have to shuffle the deck to make sure that whoever's at quarterback has enough playmakers around him. Dotson is an outstanding playmaker, great hands and ball skills.
We've got up next the Green Bay Packers off their disappointing loss. I've got them going with a defensive tackle and Devontae Wyatt out of Georgia. Again, just could fill this whole first round up with Georgia defensive players. But he's going to be 6'3", 315-ish pounds. He's going to probably run sub 4.8. That's how athletic this dude is. And it's a little bit lost in the shuffle with all their guys on defense. But, man, this guy's got the ability to rush inside and can dominate along that interior. It's a really good Packers front. This would just add to it.
Look, man, we think about the Packers and what they've been able to do. They have been one of the best teams at developing guys who have prototypical dimensions. You think about Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary. They have been able to find a way to get those guys to maybe exceed what they displayed in college. But Wyatt, man, you talk about a guy who has flashed big time to build it. Just another guy to develop and maybe turn into a star.
All right, the steal of the first round. This is just kind of how it worked out in this mock draft, but I've got the Cincinnati Bengals getting Tyler Linderbaum. He's probably one of my top 15 players in this draft class, but he's a center. Most times we see the top center go off in the late teens. Think about Ryan Kelly, I believe was the 18th pick. You can go to the Minnesota Vikings with Garrett Bradbury, I believe was the 18th pick. So that's around the range where the centers come off the board. You start looking at teams and fits, and there's a chance he slides down. This would not take them long to turn the card if Linderbaum ended up here with the Bengals.
Nah, I mean, you're talking about a guy who is a traffic cop at the point of attack, and the Bengals have been able to get as far as they have without having what we call an A-plus offensive line. So now you begin to throw some more pieces at that, and you think about, man, taking the offense to another level. Linderbaum is a terrific player, outstanding technician.
All right, we get to 30 here. I've got the Miami Dolphins, Daniel Falele from Minnesota. He's a giant. You're talking about 6'8". He's been close to 400 pounds. He can really move his feet. He's an outstanding football player. I think some people have him kind of as a second-round player. I think all the tackles get pushed up because of the need is so prevalent around the league, including here with the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, you got to be able to have these guys up front. You talk about watching the big guy from Minnesota. He is huge, DJ. I haven't seen anybody that big on tape.
Man,
it's ridiculous to watch him. I mean, like, man, you just talk about running behind him, and then if he can protect, it's just a big body, long arms. And so if they're going to build this offense around Tua Tagovailoa, you got to keep trying to allocate some resources and assets to the offensive line because you got to find a way to protect them.
All right, next up, we've got the Lions. I've got them going Malik Willis, quarterback from Liberty. This, of course, is the pick acquired in the trade for Matthew Stafford. They ended up getting one quarterback in that trade with Jared Goff, and I think it's a good fit here for Malik Willis. Jared Goff can afford him some time to develop until he's ready to go. Probably the most upside of any quarterback in this draft class. Outstanding athlete, big-time arm. A little rough around the edges, needs some time, but, man, you've got a lot to work with.
Yeah, you got a lot to work with. You just talk about the frame and the athleticism and just what he could be. We talk about ceiling with a lot of these top quarterbacks. His ceiling is at a high level, and so you just have to continue to work with him. But with Jared Goff in the fold, it gives you a little time.
All right, next up, Chiefs, Jameson Williams, because, of course, the Chiefs are going to luck out and have Jameson Williams coming off that knee injury fall right into their lap towards the end of the first round here would be an incredible pick to put another track star in with that track team they have around Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, I like it. I like how you're thinking. I like the fact that you can bring him in and take your time. He can redshirt for a year. They have playmakers around. I mean, they have all those guys on the outside surrounding Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. As long as 1 and 2 are available, Kelce and Hill respectively, those other guys have enough time to develop before they have to become key contributors.